Couple of minutes to set up. So having a few tech problems here, ladies and gentlemen, so just bear with us. All right, Will, you do what you need to do. This is Will, everyone.
Hey, nice to meet you.
He's trying to get the Instagram stream to work, so while we're doing that, we'll give people time to jump on anyway. So just...
Can I go back to here or that?
That will make us leave. So what do you need to do?
I need to change the keys, like put the new keys into there, so I'll have to come off and come back on, I think.
Yeah, but if you do that, then you're going to need a new stream key because it'll turn the stream off.
That's what I'm saying, that we need the new stream key in there.
Yeah, but if you turn the stream off, won't you need another one again?
No, that is the new one there. As in, like, it's not picking it up, so if I now put these into there and we restart it, we'll send it.
Oh, okay.
To there, do you know what I mean?
Right. I wonder if there's a way of accessing that without killing it.
Yeah,
just one sec, ladies and gentlemen. It's obviously...
Yeah, and then there. Oh. Well, you can usually edit the settings in there. Maybe it's because you're live.
Let me turn it off and on again. I think that will do it. Just sorry, mate. It's
all right.
We're trying this new tool to stream on Instagram through this, and it's a bit of a mess around. So I think we're just gonna have to not run with it. I've ready. All right, because if we cancel the stream, it's gonna end it and then re-upload it. I don't want to stop the stream.
Okay, we'll just close all this.
Oh, there we go. I can edit the settings now. Here we go. So I'm putting this in here.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, sorry. Do we need
the password as well?
Okay. There we go. So, okay, and then password. Okay, one sec, mate.
That's all right.
Guys, I'm not sure if anyone's tuned in just yet, but if you are, make sure to ask lots of questions today, because Steve, I'm going to ask the hard questions today. I've got a lot of questions about running the conference and just the logistics of doing that, because it's something that we all want to try one day, but everyone's too afraid to do it because for just probably justifiable reasons. But yeah, guys, I think we're good to go. Will?
Just double checking that. Yeah, we're live.
Cool. All right. Cool. Hey everyone, Shimmy here, I'm an online guy. It is Thursday. Thursday is live stream interview day, and today's guest, I've actually wanted to chat to Steve for a long time about this, and I was going to just pick his brains, just in private conversations. But I thought, why not try and get Steve on to talk about the logistics of running, conferences and events just in general, because I think there's a lot of insights there. So for those who don't know, Steve he has a lot of fingers in a lot of pies, but one of the things he's most well known for is actually the Digital Marketers Australia, Digital Marketers Australia Facebook group, and subsequently the conference. It's a huge conference. It's probably one of the largest in the country for digital marketers, and I attended one before pre-COVID, PC, and it was really awesome, and it was a credit to your ability to logistically set it up. So he's also got fingers in a few pies. You got your own, your co-founder skincare brand as well, and just well known in the industry. So Steve, why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself and sort of what got you to where you are today in regards to getting this conference? Conference today. Where you got to today with the conferencing.
Yeah, I mean, the conference itself kind of came about because I was traveling to the US 9 times a year looking for conferences, and then I was going over there because I kind of wanted to sharpen my sword, meet other speakers, meet other attendees, and learn. And there was nothing here in Australia, so it was really hard to find marketing events of the caliber that I was kind of happy with. The events here were either really pitchy and it was kind of like salesy, run to the back of the room, buy my stuff kind of events, or it was like, just really basic kind of here's social media, here's how to post, like kind of really basic stuff. So something that as an agency or a brand owner, you wouldn't really want to attend because there's just no meat, no content in there that you can really walk away with and be like, damn, like I actually learned something. And I found that when I went overseas, I would find that kind of content way better. Like I'd go over there and I'd walk away with my mind blown. I'd meet so many people, and not even just about the content, but you'd meet a whole lot of people that you'd go party with, you'd go for drinks with after the event, you catch up in the hallway. Like I found the networking there was incredible, and allowed me to really kind of like solidify myself in the industry and also meet a lot of really cool people, do JVs with them, partner, share ideas, make, do some business deals with them. And yeah, so I just found that like the value there was incredible. So when I came back here, after doing that for a couple of years, I was like, this is just exhausting. Like flying. I remember one day I went all the way to Florida, Fort Lauderdale in Florida. So I left on the Monday, got there in LA on Monday morning because of the time difference. That's 16 hours. Then another 5 hours to fly across the US, all the way to Florida, drive up and out of Fort Lauderdale, stayed there for 3 nights, and then took the flight all the way back across America, back all the way to Melbourne. So by Saturday, I was in Melbourne. And like, I just thought, like, this is ridiculous. Like, I just flew 40 or something hours in the space of 1 week just to go to a conference and an event. Plus flights cost, plus accommodation cost, plus ticket to the event. Like, there's got to be something nearby that actually makes sense. So that's kind of how it came about. And then we kicked them off with meetups for the first 12 months. I did meetups in Melbourne every month. And then we started doing a few in Sydney as well. And then from that, I was like, you know what, fuck it, let's just do a conference. I've been wanting to do it for a while. That was kind of testing the waters, and we were getting over 100 people to each of those free meetups every month. And we were doing like free beers and pizza as well. People were coming down, getting a few different speakers every month. And they were a bit of a, not a drain to organize, but like you do them and they're free and there's like people kind of get a bit out of it. But I was like, if we do something proper, I feel like people will just take it way more seriously. So the first event, which I'm not sure if you were there for, I can't remember, but we did it at the exhibition building in Melbourne.
No, I wasn't at that one, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I went to number 2.
That was the first one. And then we had about, I think, 400 or 500 people at that one. And that was a 2-day event. And that did really well. Like we sold that out very quickly. And then the next event, obviously you were there, that was way bigger. So we did that over 1,000 people at that event, 3 full days. We had like after party there as well. We had like, coming sponsors, just full on, at the hotel. Like it was an awesome, epic event. And then COVID hit literally that weekend after, because that was supposed to be the Grand Prix.
Yeah, that was I literally got on a plane back to WA, and like a week later they locked down. It was like 2 weeks later Melbourne was locked down. It was nuts.
So it literally hasn't been the same since then. And then about 2-3 weeks ago, we've just done our very first smaller event, but still 200 people planned for e-commerce live. That's happening in Melbourne on July 15th. So that's going to be our first event post-COVID that we've been able to do. And now, since then, Melbourne's locked down as well and has been closed the last 2 weeks up until today. So I'm here in Queensland, actually, escaping lockdown. But fingers crossed everything gets back to normal. We're still planning for July 15th. That looks like it should still be able to go ahead. Still, about over a month away. But yeah, it's just, you just don't know what's going to happen. And, with COVID stuff, hopefully if something hits, we'll just change the date and push it back a little bit. But it makes it hard for people interstate like yourself when we're running events to, plan your accommodation, plan trips. And yeah, I get it. But yeah, aside from that, it's been a great experience.
So taking a step back, what I found interesting, so like just talking about my personal experience at the DMA before pre-COVID DMA, was the scale of it. Obviously, like you were saying in the US, would the DMA be a relatively small conference to what's run in the US, or was that size-wise similar to what's happens over there quite regularly?
It depends on the caliber. You've got some events there, like Traffic and Conversion Summit, have like 6,000-7,000 people. But that's in their 5th, 6th, 7th year already. So they've been doing it for a long time, whereas this is only our 2nd year. And we've doubled the numbers from the first year. And they've got a big team running that, whereas the very first event, it was just myself running the marketing, the sales, the support, everything. and then I had brought on an event manager for the 3 days just to help coordinate on the days. And I was exhausted. Like the 2 weeks leading up to that, I was just like, I've never felt so stressed and worked and like just trying to get something out. Because the thing with an event is like you put yourself in the spot, you've got to sell the tickets, otherwise you're going to lose money. You've got to get the event going, otherwise everyone's going to turn up at your door. You have to get the staff ready. Like you don't have a choice. Like the due date's coming and everyone else is booking accommodation and flights, and you've got to perform. Like you don't have a choice. And I found that it's a really good challenge, super stressful, but a really good challenge. And the other thing about the model of doing events is you need a lot of bankroll to actually put an event on, especially at the last year's one. Because if you don't have the cash to front up the deposit for the room, for the hotel, for the getting people down, like it's not a cheap thing to do unless you're doing an event which is like, all right, we're going to pitch from stage, and then a lot of events are like we'll take 50% of what you sell from stage. Others will take, and then the promoter and the host split the profits, if that makes sense. So if people are pitching, let's say if I get on stage and I'm selling my course to the audience, we'll split the revenue on what sells, but you got to run to the back of the room every single session. And I hate that. Like I just despise pitching like that, of like hardcore, get up, run to the back of the room, webinar style pitching. And that's not the reputation that I wanted to build in the industry for my type of event. So that's why each ticket costs $600, $700, $800 plus, because you don't have to deal with that at all. It's built into the cost of the ticket. And yeah, that's just kind of how they were going. But yeah, you get a whole mix. Like overseas, when I was going, I'd go to some smaller events, and I'd go to some much bigger as well. So in terms of growth, I'm really happy with how it's grown. And now I think we're probably going to focus on smaller one-day or events until COVID kind of eases off a little bit. We probably won't get back to that big size in a while. But like a one-day, 200-person event, you still get a ton of value and you still get to meet a lot of people. I think you want that balance of really good content and good networking. And we can still do that, which is good.
Yeah, that's so interesting you say that, because that was actually my fear. I mean, you made it very abundantly clear that this wasn't a pitch fest. You're not just gonna, you hear it all the time in different spaces that like you said, the ticket only costs you $100, but you pretty much par for the course. The part of getting it so cheap is that you're going to get pitched at, and I think people don't mind paying a premium if they know what they're going to get, and what they're going to get is going to provide value. I suppose it's the same as running an agency, isn't it? It's like you provide value, people don't mind paying for it. So let's talk about the conference, the last big one, which was obviously it was March 2020, right? Yeah, it's hard to keep up these days, but it was March 2020.
No, February 12th to 14th.
Yeah, that's right, February 2020. So stepping back in time, how long in the mix do you start planning something like that? Because, or give some people some statistics about how many people were at the conference, firstly, and some just to give people a bit of idea of the scale and size of that if they didn't attend.
Yeah, with this event, we had over 1,000 people turn up. So like a lot of people, and dealing with that has its challenges in itself. We worked with an event management company this time because I just wanted to offload a lot of the responsibility, and I'll just handle the marketing. So I was responsible for essentially filling the event, marketing, sales, all kinds. And this time, the good thing was, like, the first event I did all the management. So I know what goes into planning an event, and that was just self-taught. There's no book on how to run a big event or a conference. Like, it's just figuring it out on your own. So I had to kind of put that together. After doing that, now it allowed me to kind of delegate it off because I know what's actually involved. And that was really good. But in terms of when we started advertising and planning, like, you've got to start about 9 months in advance for an event that size. So that's when I kicked it off. Like, you've got to start looking at, all right, we've got to find two speakers. We've got to find out the website, the structure, the days. You've got to book your hotel 6 to 12 months in advance if it's that size as well, because people do a lot of regular annual bookings for galas and things like that if you need a big room. That was the other challenge. There's not many big spaces that can hold over 1,000 people. And for me, that was the non-negotiable. I wanted to do a big event. So I needed a space that can hold everyone in that seating arrangement as well. So, going in, inspecting a lot of different hotels and venues, checking out, like, all right, well, if we're going to have a breakout room as well, what are the breakout room styles going to be? It was the first year we brought in the breakout room, which we didn't do the year before. So we have two
That was
tracks.
good. The breakout room was really good. I think, yeah, it got a bit warm down there. It was a bit
Yeah.
hot, but it was really good. I listened to Norquay talk in there, and you know, when you get that many people in a room too, everyone starts concentrating. Pens are out, people
Yeah.
making notes. So you find the location. So how many places did you look before you decided on what was the no. Where was it
That was the
again?
Pullman, Albert Park.
Yeah, the Pullman. Yeah. So how many places did you look at before you decided on the Pullman?
Probably 3 to 4 other venues that were kind of on the radar that could fit that many people that we would have been able to do it. But like realistically, there was probably 1 or 2 final ones I was making a decision with, and then it comes down to things like costs and location and all that kind of stuff to really secure the spot. And then one thing I wanted to try this year, or in 2020, I should say, was having a hotel there as well, so people could actually stay at the venue, because we found that over 50% of people came from interstate. So we're like, all right, it'll probably be easy if people can stay on site. They can just go downstairs and they just tune in, you know. And I think that was good, and that made things really easy. And that way, we kind of just owned the whole hotel for those 3 days. Like everything was DMA. You know, you just get the vibe, and I love that feeling where you go in and you're just like, oh, you bump into people in the corridor, you're at the restaurant, you're for breakfast. Like, it's kind of just a really good community feeling, and you can't really do that as much at an exhibition building or something like that. So I think that was a really valuable part. But yeah, there was probably 3 or 4 that we looked at, and that was the one we decided on for that one.
So then so this time around, you mentioned you had an event company manage the whole thing post, like just with your input sort of thing, but they manage the logistics and things like that. What are some of the, you know, let's say for instance, it's something I've been toying with. I'm not game enough to do it because I speak a lot to James Norquay, and he talks about the conference that he held and the logistics involved with doing it, which put me off a little bit. But I'd love to someday hold a retreat, just like a, you know, 30 people, 50 people sort of thing, a retreat here in Margaret River, here in WA, just like a mastermind retreat. You know, what are some of the things that people don't think about when they're like harebrained scheme like this? Yeah, let's do a retreat, and I'm just into it. They don't realize until you start that actually it's a big factor involved.
I mean, there's a lot of things, I guess, like when I first got into it, like on the management side of things, like it depends how hard you want to go at an event, right? Like you can do it in different stages. So you can literally just have everyone turn up, sit down, and then like away you go. You've got, you know, your speakers, but like planning the speakers, planning the sessions, making sure you allow enough time for everything. A big part is sponsors as well. So we had sponsors at both conferences. And when you have sponsors, you got to look after them, right? So you want to make sure that there's a certain booth allocation for them. The first year we had just a trestle table, and sponsors could bring like a couple of roll-up banners and, you know, keep things pretty simple. Whereas the last year, what we did was we worked with Harry the Hirer, one of the companies in Melbourne, and they actually did a full fit-out booth. So you have like a full kind of a square booth, a full like cubic booth. And then we put the sponsors in touch with them to get everything designed. It looks great, you know, and actually added a lot more, I think, like professionalism to it. But then, you know, sponsors have like tons of questions. Oh, are there power boards at the event? How many people can I bring? Like, and, you know, can I hand out like free drink bottles? Like, where can I store them? Will the hotel store them? Like, you know, like there's tons and tons and tons of emails, questions, just random things that you don't think about. And the first year when I was handling that, I was just drowned in emails. Like I'm just sitting here trying to like put the event on. I don't need to know if there's a power board coming at the hotel or where to store something. Then it would happen was like questions would come to me. I wouldn't even know if the exhibition building can hold a power board or how many they would have or where the sockets are. So I'd have to speak to the person at the building, and then they'd reply to me, and then I'd reply to them. And it's kind of just bouncing around all these questions. And
you're doing all this too. You're doing all this too while keeping your own fingers in your own pies as well.
Exactly.
You know, paying the bills.
Yeah, it's wild. So I was like, oh, this is just like, it's so much. So that's why we brought this third-party event management company on to take off a bit of the stress. Obviously, you got to pay them as well, so you got to factor that into your costs. But yeah, it helped, and they've got experience in that. Just got me out of the emails. I was able to focus on just the marketing and the sales for the conference. and double down on that. But like I handled everything from the website design, the website development, the scheduling. We had an app as well during the event to push notify people for things. They can favorite things. Like there was a lot of moving parts for last year's event. Even like the bags you get at registration, what goes into those, getting them designed, getting the bus to take people from the after party to back to the hotel or vice versa, like all these little things you just kind of have to map out on a big piece of paper and then kind of go in deeper on to plan out.
Did the event planning company help a lot? Like, did it make life a lot easier having a third party help with the logistics of it this time around?
Yeah, it definitely did. It makes things a lot easier, especially because they're on the ground during the event. So they're actually at the back of the room handling slides. And that's a whole nother thing, just like slides for each speaker. They don't get them to you on time, or they're waiting, or they're like, the format's wrong, or they want a GIF in there and the GIF doesn't work, like things like that. And then you have that across all the rooms for 3 days. There's like, 80 different slide files. But yeah, working with the event management company is super helpful. They're the intermediary between all the stakeholders, I guess, the sponsors, the attendees, the event company, the hotel, and then I'm the person that makes the final decision on things. So they're kind of like a super admin assistant, really, like someone that everything goes through.
And that specializes in this side. Credit where credit's due, though. I was looking. I mean, you did a very good job of the marketing of it too. I was like on the fence for a little bit, and then I bit the bullet because the remarketing was so on point. I was like just getting hammered, and I was like, stuff it. I want to get off my back. So obviously a good sign of good marketing involved with that, because the whole I suppose that's another bit people don't appreciate of running a conference, is how much marketing is involved to make sure you feel because I suppose, like you said, it's like you've got to make it work. Like once you commit to it, you can't just get halfway, 2 months in and go, "Oh, I'm done. Sorry, there's no conference anymore," because it's so much planning involved. So did you find marketing was a big part of the success of your conference? As have you spoken to anyone else about conferences in Australia? Have there's anyone ever picked your brains about it, really?
There's literally no one's really running conferences the same way I am. I think I've got quite a unique way of running them. I know there's other people, like I said, they do different events with pitching and things involved, but that's totally different, because it's different selling a ticket for $97 or $47 or free, and then pitching hard and then making the money on calls or sales calls. Like it works, it can work. It's just not the model that I followed. And then the only people I've been able to speak to with the guys that run Traffic and Conversion Summit in the US, Ryan Dice and his team. I was a part of their mastermind for a few years. I'm still in it actually, but I haven't been able to go there. And spitballing with them, kind of what works on a bigger scale, what worked with them. So I they helped and they gave me some great feedback. But yeah, I mean, when it comes to actually marketing a conference, you'll know, like you said, it's a really high risk business model. And the reward's like okay, obviously, but like if you cover costs, like you're celebrating. That's basically how you want to see it, because everyone makes the decisions with an event in the last 7 to 10 days before the event, and that's it's the most stressful thing, because you've got this big room and you're like, shit, I've got all these empty seats. Like, am I going to fill them? And everyone's just last minute, no matter what. So the key that I found is, if you want to fill an event like that, you have to have urgency and scarcity, and you got to have that at multiple points throughout your event. Your marketing process. So that's why we have a super early bird, a discounted rate, then it goes up to early bird, and then it goes up to discounted tickets, and then you get full price at the door. So that works and that helps, but you'll still find people like, I don't get it. Like mentally, I just don't get it. Like I'm like, all right, well, $400 you want to save to wait a month. Like I would just buy the ticket now, but a lot of people obviously just want to wait and see what's happening. Like you said, you have to get hit by retargeting like a bunch just before you can pull the trigger. And if you did it earlier, you probably would have saved a couple $100. So it's just one of those that's like, I think just people are mentally like to sit on the fence. So
I think it's Aussies too. I think Aussies are just super skeptical of everything. So it's like they go, like they're like guests too big. And that was the thing that got me. It was like because the speaker list was still being built out, obviously. When you started, I was like, who are they gonna? Next thing, it's like it turns into a pitch fest, because it's like the last 3 are just like real. So like I was like I said to Pauline, my wife, I was like, look, I don't mind paying a couple of extra $100 if I can see who's going to attend, because There's
Yeah.
specific people I want to listen to and specific people I don't necessarily. But I suppose that's the thing. Is like, because it's so broad, it's not like it was an SEO conference or a, like what you're doing now, an ecom conference. You got to cater to such a broad audience, and so how do you handle that? Because would it have made more sense to do something a little bit more narrower, or is this why you're testing the ecom conference out, or what's the sort of thoughts there?
Well, DMA, I always wanted to have a really broad, big event, just purely because I think that the market needs it. And people a lot of them don't know what they don't know. So once you go, you realize that like TikTok is actually taking off, and that can help with the agency or my brand as well. And, same way with SEO, same way with Facebook ads, same way with influencer marketing. Like I think you can't afford to ignore all of it, or just go down one road all the time. Like, it's good to have that kind of one event that everyone gets around as well.
Yes.
And I don't know, I think that's just always been a goal. I think just because of how I found like going to other events, I got the most value out of attending a couple of broader ones rather than super narrow. And the narrow ones have their place. Like I'm saying now, like the ecom one we're running, smaller, 200-person event. After that, we've got plans to run some other ones as well. So, it'll probably be a lead generation one for service businesses, because I think, again, that's lacking. There's not many events talking about how to do just lead gen. And then, probably some other stuff down the road in terms of, one-off events. But I think it's just, you need a lot of speakers. You've got to pick your speakers in kind of like quadrants. You don't want to go too much on one topic and too much on another. You want to kind of keep things broad. And the feedback we got from the first conference was, it was weird. Like, some people really like the specific stuff, the really nutty growth hacking step by step, and other people found, like, we had Fred Shabesta speaking the first year as well, and they loved his session, and that was more just talking about the 7 traits of being a marketer and what you need to have, and that was very broad. That wasn't tactical at all. So you've got to kind of balance it out, and keep things like that. Keep it a well-rounded event. So, that's kind of how it was marketed. And if you want to appeal to everyone, you got to have a bit of everything.
So that's a good point. So, like, obviously there was some decent pedigree in the speaking list, and then I hear rumors, just from my network, that there's going to be a few solid, like there's some pretty decent knowledge coming into this e-commerce one as well from the guys I've spoken to, and so like. How do you find that? It's the linchpin, isn't it? It's like, if you get the right speakers, then the rest you would think like they would, if you were to hypothetically, and I'm not saying it's the right person, but like if you were to get Bill Gates to talk at your conference, you would just naturally fill the room, right? So like, how do you approach? Because I know she had, you had the founder, what's her name, Red Balloon on. Yeah. So how do you go about finding these people to speak, and and what's the sort of criteria, and how did you screen them, and bits and pieces like that? And how early in the piece did you start planning out the speakers?
Speakers, we start really early. Like, the good thing about the first event that we did is we had a lot of feedback for which speakers were popular, what people liked and what they didn't like, because we did a survey, which was really helpful. So, the speakers that scored really highly, we reached out to again, and we asked for, them to share some maybe different content, so it's not the exact same content from last time. And then in terms of speakers, so last year, I wanted to bring on kind of a headliner speaker, which we hadn't done the previous year. So Naomi was our headline speaker. I just thought it really resonated because our brand, Digital Marketers Australia, everything digital, everything online. Founder of Red Balloon, so she's got e-commerce online experience. She was also the licensee holder for Albert.ai, which is like a copywriting AI software. Media buying AI software, sorry. So she's obviously, and she's on Shark Tank, so she's kind of got mass appeal. People know it, So
bit of pull power.
People, they'll think. So we spoke to a few other big headline speakers, and when you're speaking with people of that kind of caliber, you've got to go through an agency to get that kind of thing done, like a talent agency. So speaking with them, they come back to you with rates, they work out what the requirements are. It's kind of like working with like a DJ or an artist. They've got a writer, they know how they want things done. You got to either satisfy those requirements. I just thought like she was a really good one, and I think that she's a really good representation for the audience. For people would want to speak with her, would want to listen to her. and I just thought she really resonated. There wasn't really a big list of headliners that I thought would do a good job, and that were kind of within budget as well. Like, Get Bill would do a great job, but like probably can't afford him. So it was like finding that.
Maybe you might be able to now he's getting divorced. He might be discounted
maybe
rate.
He's half price, right?
Yeah. So you basically built it around. You basically made a wish list of people you think could be a good fit. And then you just started reaching out to them and just trying to work out logistics of how it would work, sort of thing.
Yeah, so we kind of put the categories together of what we want to cover. So we want to cover paid media, Facebook, paid media, Google. We want SEO. We want influencer. We want social media. We want TikTok. We want, maybe some general digital marketing, team building. We want something to help agencies grow. We want something to, funnels and a CRO. We want there's so many different subsets. So I'd probably list all those categories out, figure out, which speaker would be my ideal speaker in each of those categories. And then from there, kind of map out which speakers are available, who can speak and so forth. So that's the thought process behind it.
So this is a question, I don't get asked it often. I've just heard it a lot spoken about people growing their personal brands, right, to become speakers at events like yours. So I'm going to flip it around for a sec. So someone that runs a large conference and runs a conference where a lot of these people that are growing their personal brand aspire to talking to, what are some of the things you looked for when looking for speakers for your event? So let's talk about it from the people that actually find these speakers. So what were some of the things you looked for?
That's a really good question. And it's funny you say that because I've done a ton of speaking leading up to running a conference. So I've been on both sides of it, going to speak and running the speaking side. For me, the biggest thing that I think as a speaker you want is be very results driven. For my events anyway, I don't really particularly like gurus that are teaching things that they haven't performed themselves. So having actually results behind what you're doing. So let's say you're an email marketing expert. I wanted to know all right, so these are some of the clients we're working with, or these are some of the results we've achieved. So that's always obviously number one, is having results to be able to share. Number two is probably also being able to show that you're comfortable speaking. So it's not always the people with the best results that are the best speakers. You want to be able to actually deliver a really good presentation on stage. So I know even from our last event, there were some people with amazing content that I thought, your speaking capabilities are okay, but they could captivate the audience way better if you worked on being a public speaker. And then you don't want to be on the flip side. You don't want to be a public speaker but have no actual meat in your session. And that's the other thing. So you really want someone to be personable on stage that can really hold their own and be entertaining and engaging, while also delivering really good content, really engaging stuff. So if I've seen that on another session, if you've gone and spoken somewhere else before, it doesn't have to be a big event, but just even a meetup or something like that, and instantly there's a video or there's some sort of content that I can see, I'll be like, wow, this person knows what they're talking about. They're good at delivering their presentation. They'd be a really good fit for this part in the conference. And then I think also an element of it is obviously following as well. If you've got a big following, a big crowd behind you that you can help market the conference, and you tick those other boxes, then that helps. But I'd much rather there's a lot of speakers out there that have hundreds of thousands of fans, but I'm they're just not a good fit. Flat out, I'd rather just get someone who knows what they're talking about, because people would appreciate that. Do you feel like conferences really lean on the star power sometimes, as opposed to, because what I really liked about DMA is as a marketer, I looked at the marketing you did and went, the marketing was done so solidly that it really was, the speakers were, you weren't leaning on the fact that you had, the founder Red Balloon there or whatever, to really, they were obviously there, but it was just it was front of mind, and it was the value proposition was solid. So do you feel like a lot of conferences lean on the fact of getting a Bill Gates in to talk, and then the rest are all kind of just to fill that gap? For sure. And especially these pitchy style of conferences. There's a lot of them out there. They'll just get Robbie Kiyosaki,
Gary Vee or something like that.
Gary Vee, and then the rest of them are just pitching. And I'm fuck this. This is a waste of time. it's not what I want to be known for. Whereas ours, like, you'll have the top speaker and she'll deliver great content, but everyone else is going to be delivering amazing content too. Like, I had people coming up to me saying like, oh, you know, I've got the breakout room and the main room. Like, I don't know which one to go to. I want to go to both. Like, I'm like, well, it's a good problem to have. Buy the recordings. That's the only thing I can really say. Like, you know, that's kind of how you want things to be. You want everyone to have a lot of really good content. So yeah, I mean, it's been good that way. We just kind of, I guess, really had solid speakers.
So let's talk about let's not talk about specific numbers here because obviously every conference is different. But like, let's talk about a ratio of 100%. It's like the full budget you had for this. So like, how does the 100% generally get distributed in a conference like this? Where does that sort of money go, and what are some of the big money pits of a conference that maybe people don't sort of realize?
Yeah, it really depends on the scale of the conference. I'd say like we're probably looking at about 40% like venue, like in terms of getting the venue involved, catering.
Wow, how much?
Yeah, that was because it was a big event though. You know, you've got to consider catering, like even just things like a coffee. Like you think, oh, you know, $3-4 a head for a coffee, but then when you got 1,000 people, that adds up really quick.
And some of those people are drinking 5-6 coffees a day.
Exactly. So like, there's that. What else is there? So then you've also got your marketing. The marketing's definitely the biggest spend. That's probably about 40 or 50%, just because you got to get the word out there. And then I'd say 10 to 20% is a mixture of everything else. A mixture from website development, design. You know, you've probably got. Depends if you have an event management team. There's probably 10% in the out of the total.
Yeah.
You know,
is it worth giving that 10% to an event management team, knowing what you know now after using one for the whole? Could you have done the 2020 DMA without someone like logistically helping that knows what they're doing?
It's worth it if you've got a big event. I think for a smaller event, I would say under 400-ish people, you probably only need like one event manager that you need maybe for the day. It depends. Like for me, I've got other businesses as well I'm working on. So this is one of many. And for me to spend like 8 months straight focused on DMA, I could probably have done it. But if I would have, you know, I wouldn't have had time to work on my other businesses. So
yeah,
like it really depends how much you value your time and what you're working on. So I would say like last year was worth it, but if I used them in the first year, or I used any company in the first year, the margins would have been far slimmer. And you know, that I probably wouldn't have, you know, been as successful as it was to do it a second year. So I think you just build up to it, you know, build up to working with a company like that. You're probably better off just hiring an event manager just to handle on the day, like I did in the first year. So we had someone fly over from WA, actually, flew her down, brought her in the day before the event, helped her organize everything, like smashed out the event for the 3 days, was just the go-to person. I still didn't have to do that much, which was great. So she's just a liaison. And then we also have volunteers for all the events. So I think we had about 20 volunteers for the bigger event last year and about 10 for the first one. So they're really helpful.
And where do you find those people? Just they're mates of yours, or they're just
mixed. Some are friends of like brothers or sisters of my friends, and you know, university students that want to get experience, and they'll get access to things like the recordings. They'll get to be involved in the event. So there's a lot of benefit and upside for them. You know, they don't have to spend $500 to $800 on a ticket.
Yes.
And they get to just, you know, usher people, show people, you know, fill bags, things like that. And then we obviously have the manager or the managers coordinating them what to do. So that was really good. But yeah, I mean, look, it's worth it, but just, yeah, as you grow, I think.
So would you, in retrospect, would you have charged more and had less people? Or do you think your price point was sort of on point for where you wanted the conference to be? Because obviously I would have said that, I can't actually remember what I paid. I was in some tier of that early bird thing, but I would have said it was quite cheap for what it was, which is probably a good thing to hear, you know, because it means you're providing value. But, you know, I think, you know, would you have got the same numbers if you charged a couple of $100 more, or was that number based on something else externally?
I think the one thing that I realized, I still wanted to do it, so I'm glad I did. It's not a regret, but one thing that I think I wouldn't do again is 3 days. I think that's too much for most people. I
Yes.
think 2 days is sufficient. But I wanted to do the three because it just felt like such an immersive experience. Like 3 days, 2 rooms, like we really went all out. Like that's a lot of time to keep away from your business and like, just really immerse yourself. And I feel like you actually learn a lot. But looking back, I'm like, oh man, that was just like so much work. And like an extra day, you don't think about it, but like you've got to plan a whole schedule, you got to hire the room, you got to do everything. And like I feel that 2 days would have just been, I could have, the prices and everything would have remained the same and it would have been a 2 day event. And I think that would have been probably a better value proposition for what was coming. And honestly, the value would have been the same. I think people would have walked away thinking, you know what, like there's like 24 sessions across 2 days with a breakout room and a main room. Like that's a lot of content, even for anyone to take in. I think that's pretty good. So in the future, we'd probably reduce it just to 2 days. And it affects your cost of running the event, but mainly I think just the enjoyment of people. Like, you don't want to be away from the business for half a week. You'd rather be there maybe a Thursday,
Yes.
Friday.
Yeah,
And
because I did notice that there was a lot of people, and I was guilty of it as well. I was sort of in and out with laptops, trying to sort out like the bits and pieces of running a business as well. And it's what I found is it was just so much to take in because it was actually, you can genuinely hand on your heart say it was like packed full of good information. So like I was sitting there scribbling stuff down, and by the third day I was just like mentally drained, especially after the party and stuff. I was like, the third day was like, oh, I just kind of skipped this one because I just want an hour to like catch my breath sort of thing. So I think you're right there. I think 2 days, you still would have felt, I still would have felt like I got a heap of value out of it, out of 2 days, as opposed to three. But like you said, then the point of diminishing return is like if it was just 1 day, it probably wouldn't have been worth me flying over for because it's in and out sort of thing. So that seems like that would have been a sweet spot now to mention it. Did you see a lot of people, the numbers dwindle off on the third day as well?
you do see them dwindle a bit, but it also depends on the content, and on the session. Some people want to stick around for a specific speaker or session. I think that's the thing. It's all about the content, the speaker. People stay the whole time if they've got they're learning a lot and they want to pick something up or they're following a specific session. That's why I think these 1 day events are really good because people are willing to travel for a 1 day event knowing that all 1 day is on one specific topic because they know that everything there is like every speaker I want to be there for. Whereas, with DMA, which is a bit bigger event, 2 days is probably more worthwhile traveling because then you want to pick and choose what you want. And it gives it a bit more flexibility and you get to listen to a bit more of everything else. So it kind of has its pros and cons. Like you definitely see some people drop off by the end of the last day. I think everyone's just tired and you're just exhausted, but in a good way. But I think the best part, one of the highlights of these events is just the networking. Doing the actual.
100%.
We got the nightclub we hired, I think, for that big event, which was great. I think even next time, just drinks at a bar where people can talk maybe a little bit easier would be good. I heard that the first day we did that, I think it was in the outside beer garden area of the hotel.
Yeah, before the club, yeah.
So I think more of that would work really well for what we want to do. Even for the e-commerce event, we're going to have a social drinks as well after that event. 1 day event, but everyone still gets to network and have fun. So I think that's my favorite element, honestly, is just seeing people connect, network, because that's how I've built my network up going to all these events overseas, is going to one and then you see the same people at another event and then you connect and then, you just make such great relationships. There's people that I'm going to be lifelong friends with through events that I've met, and then you go out and party with or you just have fun with and you do business with.
100%. That is a single big, that's why I say value, notwithstanding the actual talks, because it was just interesting to hear different perspectives on things you already know, especially with SEO and stuff like that, because it's not everyone is at the same level. So it was interesting to hear what other people are doing with their clients and what's working, what's not. But there is a whole network that I have developed around myself purely from that event. That was the catalyst for me meeting 50 or 60 other, because I used to work in a little bit of a vacuum over here in WA. I didn't really know anyone, so I kind of just did my thing and worked away. But I lean on a lot of other people now in my network. Everyone I've been interviewing, basically everyone I've interviewed has at some point I met at DMA and I've just maintained contact with. So I think that's definitely something that's understated with the value. But that would only happen at a good conference. I think if it was a conference that was pitchy and salesy, everyone be just trying to find reasons to get out of there.
Yeah.
Whereas that's the one thing I got from it is like, yeah, even though 3 days was long and probably, a bit too much brain drain wise, no one really wanted to leave. They were still happy to hang out, but we all had things to do, like work to do. So I was like, oh, we got to get on a plane. But, I hung out with, Dan and Elite Brands and those boys at the airport, flying back to our places, and Glenn and stuff, and waiting at the airport. We were just having drinks at the airport from the conference. I had never met them before that. So I think that's a good sign of a good thing, is that, because I've been to conferences in the past, not in this space, but like conferences in the past, and it's like you just like talk to a couple of people and then you nick off, and that's it. There was no they didn't put any concerted effort to go, how can people that don't know each other, how can you put them in a room and share something together and then build experiences off that? So I definitely think that's what was special about that. So like, let's say hypothetically, like I said, this retreat, I'm still, COVID put a big spanner in the works. I'm not going to risk it with COVID around, but like let's say, for instance, there's someone that's wanting to sort of start a conference like yourself, out of necessity, because they wanted something to exist that doesn't exist yet. What would be some of the things you'd say to a person? What would you say to me? Going, because like a bit of background, like I said, I'd love to do just like a retreat, like a couple of, a weekend down at Margaret River, do like, get a couple of good speakers in there, do more of a mastermind style, 30, 40 people sort of thing, Margaret River wine tour sort of thing, build that stuff into it. What would you say to me, just after hearing that? Don't pull any punches either. What would you say? Am I mad for thinking of starting something like that, or is there things that I need to think about before you do that? The other question I had too is, do you think that your personal network and your relationships that you have in the industry, because you're quite well known, helped? You think without that, do you reckon you would have struggled to get DMA off the ground at the conference?
I'll answer the second one before the first one, because I think the first one I'll go into in a sec. But definitely, I think the honestly, if I didn't have the foundation of knowing so many amazing people in the industry, just from going to events and socializing, like I'm a pretty extroverted personality myself, so like I've gone and traveled through America to speak and to attend events and join masterminds. So I've kind of done everything that I was planning on doing already. So I've seen events as an attendee, I've seen events as a speaker, I've run events, like I've done the whole thing before I've actually gone and decided I want to do it, because now I know what's involved. Running an event was the only thing I hadn't done. And then even in Australia, I had to have a decent foundation of speakers, because I've got to get someone to speak, and you can't afford to pay everybody to speak. So it was just inviting people that, would be willing to come down and share what they want, and also finding the right speakers. So, I can just reach out to people, cold DM them, but you don't really want to do that for your entire roster. Like, that's not the same kind of feeling. I think
you know people in the industry, they're super soul, like Will Wangs of the world and stuff like that. You get them on there talking about something, and they'll do a good job of it, sort of thing.
But I think like doing the meetups we did for the first 12 months really solidified that too. People that I kind of knew but didn't know really well, I got down to speak, and we just became better friends. And they would introduce me to other people. I'd be like, oh look, I'm looking for someone to speak on this. Do you know anyone? And they would do the intro. So I think the network just grows and grows. Like you get one or two really solid people, and it kind of flutters into this like spider web of other people that they know and trust. And they're putting their reputation on the line to introduce you to them. So if I say like, do you know anyone that's SEO? You're going to introduce me to someone that you hopefully trust. And then if they're bad, then it looks bad on you. So you're not going to do that, right? So like that's kind of how I think it's grown here in Australia. And that's also like, going back to the other question as well about if you're a speaker, how do you get involved with conferences? There's so many people that just attack when the event starts, or like a month out, and say, hey, can I be a speaker? I'm like, I don't know you. Like, we have never spoken. You've never attended any past events. Like, show some sort of interest in the event before you want to speak. Like, that's one of the key.
Did you get a lot of those did you get a lot of those people?
Tons. Like people that are like, super underqualified, people that just have a reel and expect you to be a speaker, people that just like full on just, want to be involved in the event. Like I went to Traffic and Conversion Summit 5-6 years in a row in the States before I got offered a chance to speak there. And then the one time I got offered to speak, bloody COVID hit and it got cancelled. So I was spewing. But
But
like
that was just being actively involved in it and
actively,
being
yeah, like getting to know the organizers, getting to know the people running it, staying in the community, being active, like that's the key thing. And you just can't catch those breaks unless you know you're in there. Like there's no point just cold approaching someone and hoping for the best. Like low chance of like, you know, if someone's put all the effort into organizing an event, putting their reputation on the line, you know, it's a high risk for them to bring you on stage for like your benefit, you know, pretty much.
yes.
Like I don't know who you are, I don't know anything about you. You just want to get famous and be on stage and, you know, get a video role and, you know, go on with your merry day. Like that's not really how it works. So you've just got to kind of put in the effort, you know, show that you're invested, I think, even as a ticket holder, but also just like, you know, maybe how can I help to promote? Like I've got an email list, like I'd love to get the word out. Maybe, you know, if I come this year and get to meet you face to face, we can look at speaking next year. And that's what really makes a difference. Like stands out for me. That's how a lot of the speakers last year, you know, kind of made their way on stage. But yeah, in terms of your first question, running a retreat, I think you have to decide, like, this is what I think I told Norquay as well when he did his event. You got to decide, number one is, like, are you an event business or are you just running a one-off event? So figure that out. And obviously you just want to run a one-off event. And then like start with the end in mind. So start figuring out what are the costs? What do you plan to do? Like build your itinerary out, figure out what the costs of all that are, figure out the end goal you want someone to walk away with when they leave the event. Like, do you want them to walk away an SEO expert? Do you want them to walk away with networking? Do you want them to walk away with whatever? And then start pricing that in and then adding your margin on top from that point, you know?
Yep.
And it can still be fun. Like, this is totally different, but I'm running a yacht party up here on the Gold Coast. Funnily enough, like in a few weeks.
That's so sick.
Totally different demographic, you know, but like the goal behind that is purely just to have a good time and enjoy it. But my event experience, I can lean on to organize that. So that's pretty much like a break-even event. Like we're not looking to make money off. We just want to run a fun event.
Yeah, you want the event to exist, so you're like, well, someone's got to organize it.
No one's organizing it. We can do it, and then we'll see. It might even turn into a business down the road. But right now, it's just a fun thing to do. Whereas the same thing with you, right? Like you just want to start doing a fun thing, get a bunch of people in, make sure you don't lose too much money or any money, and then, you know, launch it from that. And then if it does well, you can choose if you want to run it annually or, you know, a couple times a year. But yeah, just start with the end in mind. Think about like all the steps involved. And think about, you know, is it going to take time away from your current business? Do you have to market it, or is this just going to go out to existing customers? Because the marketing is the most expensive part. So, you know, if you can fill
even internally, it's a big expense, isn't it? Because you still got to pay Facebook and Google as much as you can do the legwork.
100%. Like you'd be surprised, even with an email list and things like that you might have, like it still takes time to get people to pull the trigger and buy. And then it's different between like anything I'd say over $1,000 would be pretty high ticket. Under $1,000, you still sell like a conference kind of a few days. But anything over 1,000 usually is kind of like mastermind style. So you probably want like 30 people or less, really tight knit group. Everyone knows everyone. But like I've paid like $25,000 a year for masterminds, you know, and they have like 100 people in there. And I think I've been members for those for like 2-3 years. Like, and it's just something that I've always got value for. So I don't have a problem, I think, charging that because I know that the value's there. You know, and I think until you spend money that way, you feel the value. It's hard to kind of sell someone on something like that. And I've just found that, like, you know, meeting people, the ROI on meeting people, like, has paid off in spades. And, you know, it's something that I'm always going to continue to do. So that's why I think events are so powerful, because people will walk away from your retreat and they'll be like, oh man, I just met XYZ, like we're doing a deal, like we made $100,000 this year, or, you know, whatever it might be. Like that's, I think, the powerful part of events, especially with a small, tight-knit retreat like that.
Yeah, and you know, like it's still, I mean, I can't see, you know, COVID disappearing in the minute, so it's like, you know, still a bit more time to plan. But it's interesting to hear that perspective, because it's like, the only reason I really want to do it is if someone else had a retreat like that, I'd attend, because it's like, you know, it's something that I think would, like, I can't put a dollar figure on how much value I got from the DMA, from the networking side of it. Like that, it'd have to be in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. Like the amount of like partnering I've done with other agencies, just because you know, like you would have seen, I was out there. I was like, I literally just tried to meet as many people as I could because it's like, I don't get much of an opportunity to do it over here. Just sheer number of people around, and so I just said, damn, if I'm going to be over here, I'm just going to make the most of it. And you know, you're right. Like the value of that net. What is it? Your networks, your net wealth. Or you know, your net.
Yeah, your
You know,
network, net worth.
yeah, it's so true. And you know, I just want something like this to exist so I can attend it. But if it has to be, if someone has to fly the flag and get it done, that's where I was sort of thinking at least it would happen. But if it happens in the Barossa Valley or you know somewhere else, I don't care. It's like I'll be there. But
and plan like
yeah,
plan your dream event. Like just do it. I think like it's such a good experience. Honestly, like I honestly when I ran the first one, I was just like fuck it. Like even if it goes down in flames, it's something I'm always gonna remember. Like even if it goes down in flames, like whatever. The worst case scenario is like I have to refund everyone their money, say the event's not on or whatever. Like that's how I say. You don't have to start with 500 people, but like you can start with 30 or whatever, and just run with it. Like the risk, I think, of running a small event is very low. You know, the bigger events obviously have a lot more risk associated to them, but the smaller events that you want to just start, like just put yourself in the deep end. I just treated it as an experience that I thought, you know what, highlight of my life is going to be try running one of these events. If it works, awesome. If it doesn't, like, you know, I'm not going to be regretful that I tried. So I think that's the best way of looking at it, and then just giving it a crack, honestly.
for better or worse, you're either running the DMA and it was a hugely or the Fire Festival. You know, you pick,
Exactly.
it's one or the other. You know, so like,
Or we're going to get a great event.
yeah, you always be known for it regardless. So you might as well, you know, give it a crack. I agree. I think that's the, you know, because like you said, it's like, you know, there is cost, and I suppose that's the thing. It's, you know, you may be out of pocket a little bit or whatever, but if you can run a good event and keep it organized, like you said, it's you can make it exactly how you want it then and exactly how you think it should be done. And that's what I was thinking is like, if I just set up this retreat, how I'd love to attend one, you know, we'd go on doing a bit of golf and having a bit of, it's not just about like the info that's spread in there, it's about the networking. And you know, we live in a beautiful part of the country, so it's like a good way of getting people, you know, good excuse to get people to get to Margaret River on the business books. So like, I thought, something like that. But yeah, man, I mean, I could sit here all day asking you questions about conferences because I think it's something that everyone in the back here, you know, I think anyone that says they're not trying to grow their own personal brand or their brand is lying, whether they're consciously or subconsciously doing it. So that's the difference, right? So like, I think, you know, even just hearing about, you know, what you should be doing. Because the other thing I was going to ask is like the meetups. It's obviously, it's pretty big in the Eastern States. You know, there's lots of meetups for all different parts of marketing. But over here, there's only like 3 or 4 solid meetups in the state. Do you think doing the meetups first and just testing using that as a test bed was a smart way to get into doing conferences?
So one thing I forgot to mention about the meetups was like we ran them and they were, in terms of turn up rate, they were successful. Like we had 100 people. I think some of them had over 150 as well with bigger ones. And they would just be a casually planned thing that, you know, super easy to organize. Send a couple of emails, post up an event, and away you go. Just hope people turn up. But what we found was when I pitched the first event, the first conference, the tickets for that were fairly cheap. Like it was $300 for a super early bird ticket, like, or $197 actually. I think we even had $200 for like the conference for a 2-day event. And I'm like, man, this is like super cheap.
This found is the first DMA, eh? This is
the first one, yeah, the very first one. And like, I'm like, oh geez, like $197, like super cheap. I think less than 5 people that ever came to a meetup, maybe 10 bought a ticket out of like the hundreds that attended.
Oh, really?
In Melbourne, at least. A super small percentage. Because the meetups are free, right? Like they're just freebie events. Like you can just turn up, whereas this one was like, and we saw a shit conversion rate, like nothing. So all our tickets came from pretty much sales and marketing of Facebook ads, Instagram, whatever, YouTube. So it was just crazy. I was just like, man, this is ridiculous. Like I didn't think people that attend these meetups were such tire kickers. And when I say tire kickers, I mean like they just don't invest in themselves if there's a little price attached to it. Like, you know, great people, eager to learn, but like, come on, we're offering free beer and pizza and we're charging now $200 after a year of running these and you won't buy a ticket. Like, it was just super surprising. And especially the people that would continue to return to the meetups. Like, I'd be like, oh, you know, you're clearly getting value out of it. I just didn't understand the switch. And a couple of people have come all the way from our very first meetup, come to all the events, and it's awesome to see. Like, they've stuck around from the very beginning. And we've changed venues as well with these meetups. We used to do them in co-working spaces, and we did it. We had MYOB as a sponsor at one stage, so we did it in their offices, which is cool. So they're a bit of work, but like it was a good ground just to actually get speakers and network with speakers and actually run a mini event. We filmed all of them. Like, it was just a good experience to do all that. But yeah, it kind of just throws you in the deep end a little bit. It was good.
That's so. I would have thought, yeah, you'd think as a traditional marketer, you go, well, this is the demographic. They're here. I've got them engaged. At EDM, get them engaged and sell them, give them a good value proposition they're in. But yeah, I suppose it makes sense when you think about it, because it's like the demo. I must admit, I don't attend a huge amount of meetups. But I'll happily pay $700,000 to attend an event that's got a clear itinerary and an agenda. So that's that's interesting.
Yeah, and then our market just wasn't in the meetups. So like, just like yourself, you're happy to pay it, and obviously you'll get the value. But that same audience that went to our meetups wasn't the same audience that would go to the event. So it was just really interesting.
That's so, yeah, that is that actually is genuinely surprising, because I hear there's quite a few, they're quite big meetups too, so you would think at least a portion and subset of that is like, trying to do it. But
I would say 10% maximum. Like, over 10%, no way. Like 10% would definitely the max. And then we had, like, even in Sydney, I had a partner, Dan, who was running Growth Hackers in Sydney. So that merged with DMA, and so we've got that whole community as well as part of DMA. And it's been good. Like, I've spoken at a bunch of meetups and things, and conferences are just different, I guess. People are willing to spend a bit of money, and they'll actually attend as well.
Yes. Well, I suppose once you make the investment in the ticket and the flights, if you have it, or travel or thing, you're sort of emotionally invested in making the most out. Well, I was making the most out of it too. A meetup is like a couple of hours out of your day. It's something you do after work, and it's not really, doesn't have the emotional investment the same way a full-blown conference. And that's really interesting. All right, so look, I know you're a busy man. Well, actually, it seems that you're on the Gold Coast just doing nothing. So maybe you're not as busy as I think. But what brings you to the Gold Coast? Is it this yacht party, or is it a?
Yeah, so I was running this event in first week of July. So, well, I escaped to Melbourne because of lockdown. I was like, oh, I just want to get out of Melbourne. And then it just kept going. So I was like, well, the problem is now if I go back and the borders don't open, Queensland doesn't let any more Melburnians in, then I might miss my own event. So I have to stick it out. Unfortunately, I have to stick it out in the sun in Gold Coast. Unlucky, right?
Look, look, I don't know whether it's your mate that drove up the coast to Sunshine Coast. Very suspicious that you're in Queensland now, and 2 days ago someone was driving around the countryside spreading COVID around, so we'll have to investigate that. But dude, thanks so much. I got a lot out of that. Now I'm going to post this after the fact and cut it up in a few clips, so if there's anyone out there that just wants to pick your brains a little bit more about running a conference or just have some friendly banter, do you have an email address there or anything that they can reach out to you?
Honestly, best way, just hit me up on Instagram or something, just at Stephen Esketzis. That's probably the easiest page just to reach me on. Send me a DM. Happy to chat. Or on Facebook, Stephen Esk. You can just message me on there. Sometimes I'm pretty unresponsive, but I'll do my best to get to everyone. I'm just terrible with social media, but it's funnily enough, right? As a digital marketer, terrible with DMs and social media. But yeah, just send me a DM and we'll happy to chat and answer any questions.
Awesome. That is so good. Thank you so much for coming on, man. And just quickly, guys, if you're tuning in next week, I don't have my set list here, but we got who's on next week? Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm getting shrugs. We got someone awesome on. It's on the top of my head, but honestly, Steve, thanks so much for joining us today. And guys, like, seriously, Steve's a top bloke. If you have any questions, I've just found that the whole industry in general, the network I've made from DMA especially, everyone's just good people too. So, and they're all willing to help. Everyone's got the same mindset about business and marketing especially. So, like, I haven't found anyone yet that I've met post DMA after meeting him there that hasn't been happy to help me or just allow me to ask questions and pick their brains. I'm always in Norquay's ear just asking them random questions about running large agencies and You know, so like, guys, I think take advantage of the people in this country that are willing to help. And that's the whole goal of these interviews, is just to introduce you to people that are in the industry that know a lot about their areas, that you can pick the brains of if you have questions about. So take advantage of that. Thanks once again, and enjoy the rest of your day. Don't get too crazy on the yacht, and hopefully you stay away from COVID. Hopefully it hasn't followed you up there.
I know, I'll be safe. Thank
Good
you.
on you. All right. Thanks, Steve.